Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle from WeAreSC.com. We have the whole group here and ready to go because it's game week, kind of. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the Missouri State Bears, which is the first time I've ever said that sentence. We'll talk about a little fall camp wrap-up. Maybe we'll talk about other stuff. I don't know. I have no idea what these guys are going to do. A bunch of wild cards. Okay, fellas, let's start with the fall camp wrap up. We have talked a lot about position groups and players, and we've all talked about sort of our season projections. I wrote a really long article about it. If you haven't read it, go read it. If you tell me if you like it. If you don't like it, don't tell me anything. So let's do something a little bit different. Let's go position group by position group, and just give me your X factor. It can be a player, it can be an issue, it can be whatever you want it to be. The floor is wide open. And because this is very much an Eric McKinney type question, Eric, you're going to start us off. I want to hear your X factor when it comes to the quarterback room.
So there's a part of me that wants to go real sort of off the wall and oh, you didn't think about this, but it's not. It's turnovers. It's turnovers, and it's as straightforward as you can make it, and it's as big of an impact on probably the entire season as anything's going to be. And that's interceptions, it's fumbles, it's all of that stuff. I'd make a sneaky argument for like key first down, touchdown scrambles, right? Like can you pick up yards like that on the ground? But nothing is bigger than can you limit turnovers at that position, especially in key moments. And that's it. That's it for the year. Do you throw for 4,500 yards or 2,500 yards? I don't even think that matters if you just keep the offense on the field moving forward.
There's a decent chance that answer really does encapsulate the whole season, and we could just call it a show right now. But we're not going to. Mark Holkin has something to say. I think. Do you have something to say, Mark?
About the quarterback position? About the quarterback position? I actually wrote about it. I just put it up a short while ago. I think what would do wonders for Jaden Mayaba's confidence, because that's really what they've been working on all offseason. His leadership skills, his communication skills. When he leads the USC offense on the field, USC goes down and scores on that first drive. No, it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be beautiful, but getting a touchdown result at the end of that first drive, I think, will do wonders for his confidence. And then also closing out the second half the same way. We don't need to have USC scoring touchdowns every single drive. While we would love that, I think just for his own confidence going forward, getting out of the box quickly and looking good. No tip passes, nothing where he's got a second guess himself. Should I have dropped my arm to this angle? Should I have gone to that player? Just smooth sailing. Looked like you scripted those first 20 plays and you memorized them.
All right, Greg Katz. So we have one answer that is don't turn the ball over. One answer, start fast. What's your X factor with that quarterback room?
It depends on turnovers. Turns out no matter how many yards you pass for, you can't give up pick sixes and those type of things. You can't go on long drives, get into the red zone and throw an interception. To me, it's all about the interceptions. How many? When do they come? How do you respond to them? So, there's a lot of stuff on the plate for the quarterback for USC. And, I hope he does great. I really hope he does great. They really worked. I know they worked on it. But, you never know once you get into the heat of battle and everything gets turned on. I don't care whether it's Missouri State or it's Notre Dame. Once the competition begins, especially at the beginning of a game, let's just say that, everyone's coming to play.
Yeah, USC quarterbacks combined for 15 picks last year, and those weren't, some picks are bad and some picks are horrible. They tended to focus their efforts on the horrible variety, right? These were not Hail Marys at the end of the first half getting picked off, 3rd and 38, and you throw it 50 yards downfield. So, yeah, turnovers are huge. I'm going to go with a different one, though, just because somebody's got to say something different. I think Jaden Mayava has to run the ball. He has to run the ball. the style of offense that USC runs, most of those running plays, you are not blocking the backside edge. The quarterback is blocking the backside edge by being a threat to run the ball. That holds him in place. If you never run the ball, if you're no threat to do it, that guy will crash down and kill you. They get an extra guy in the box. That has to stop. It happened way too much last year. It didn't happen very often with Caleb Williams because he was a threat. Jaden Miles needs to run the ball. Speaking of running the ball, let's go to the running backs room. X factor with the running backs room, Mark Holken.
So I'll steal a little bit of Eric's thunder. Again, ball security. That you don't turn the ball over, don't fumble. Show that you can pass protect, because if you can pass protect, you're going to be on the field and you're going to get opportunities to carry the ball. I think everybody anticipates Waymon Jordan being the guy this year. And if he is what everyone is kind of anticipating, USC is going to have that really electric running back. Not to take anything away from Woody Marks or Marshawn Lloyd or Travis Dye or Austin Jones, but we're talking about a running back that has that kind of wow factor where you're looking for him to do something every time he touches the ball. Maybe that's unfair, but that's kind of the aura he's been, that's been kind of cast on him during fall camp. So ball security, pass protection. Let's see what Waymon Jordan can do.
Greg Katz, what's your X factor with the running back room?
My X factor is how devoted, how changed, if he has, is Lincoln Riley in using his running game. I've seen Jordan. He's a physical back. He's not tall. He's about 5'9", 5'10". I've talked with him. He's a sturdy guy. It reminds me of when I know people hate it when I go back in time. Sorry about that, but when O.J. Simpson left, everybody said, "Well, who's going to replace O.J. Simpson?" And in came a junior college transfer, Clarence Davis, and he didn't have the speed of O.J. Simpson. Not many people ran a 9.5, 9.400, but he was very physical in the speed that he had, and he eventually became an All-American in some polls. My feeling with Jordan is, if you're expecting someone to be breaking off 80-yard touchdown runs, not likely, but he could probably get you some yards. If you need a first down, it's 3rd and 3 or something like that, and you decide to run the ball. Question is Lincoln Riley going to decide to run the ball? When he does, and how do the early games affect his ability to, when they really start playing teams that are nearly as talented or more talented? How does Lincoln Riley turn out as far as his selection of running?
Eric McKinney, what's your X factor with the running backs?
I think it's explosive plays. I think it's turning the 10-yard run into a 55-yard run. I think it's to the house as often as you can. I don't think that look, the offensive line, we all hope the best for the offensive line. I would rather have fewer snaps on some drives. Like get a cheap, easy touchdown because your running back made 6 guys miss in the second level and went. And I think you have a guy in Eli Sanders that can do that. I think Waymon Jordan, again, is not going to be the fastest guy in college football. I think he's a step up from Woody Marks. I look at last year, and you had so many 10-yard runs, and then you look at 20-yard runs, 30-yard runs, 40-yard runs, and USC just tumbled down the rankings as you went farther and farther along. And those, I think the perfect example, right? Woody Marks breaks a 65-yard run at Michigan, gets brought down at the 2-yard line. USC ends up fumbling on that snap, doesn't score a touchdown. Now, that was the play where Woody Marks pulls it back, and then they do score at the end, but the result of the drive on that run is that they don't score. And that didn't happen every time, but it just shows you, right? Finish those off. If you get a crack as a running back, take it all the way. Don't make yourself have to go 10 snaps, 11 snaps, 12 snaps to get down the field. And that's what you want other teams to have to do. So I think that's big. Can this group of running backs do that and really start getting some chunk plays on the ground? Because I don't know if you have the offensive line where we'll just lean on them and we'll go 4 yards a carry and we'll go 17 play drives and get all the way down the field without any mistakes, or a coach who decides to throw it.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the X factor is missed tackles. USC's running backs have to make people miss. They have to run through arm tackles. They have to be able to make moves in the open field. Woody Marks is a really good football player. He was an excellent receiver. He had good vision. Woody Marks did not break many tackles. He was much too easy to bring down. And when you have an offensive line that is questionable, sometimes your running backs have to make something out of nothing. And I think they have some guys. I think Jordan and Bri Jackson are capable of running through arm tackles, are capable of getting extra yards. I think Eli Sanders is a guy who probably can make people miss and hit a seam. But I think that's something they have to have at other running backs. This is not an offensive line from the late 1970s. If they give you a 4-yard hole, you have to make it a 7-yard hole. That's what we need from the backs this year. Okay, let's go to the wide receivers. Greg, why don't you start us off? What's your X factor with the wide receivers this season?
That they catch the ball, and the top two, Malachi Lemon, and his partner, that they catch the ball when they're supposed to and become a big factor. They could be the best pair of wide receivers in the country, possible. But the question is, when you go past them, who's that third receiver that you're going to be able to look at? That's to me is really important, because it's all about catching the ball. You catch the ball, everything keeps moving. Opens up running if you want. So to me, my X factor is, are they going to catch the ball? And then what are they going to do once they catch the ball? How difficult are they going to be tackled?
Yeah, and there are two parts of that, right? I mean, one of it is just drops. You can't drop passes you should catch. But the other thing is that USC fans have gotten really spoiled with receivers who go up and win 50-50 balls at much higher than a 50% rate, right? And that's going back many years now. Keyshawn and BMW all the way through Drake London. And you had guys who would go up, and if it's a 50-50 ball, it's an 80% chance they're going to pull it down. USC was terrible in 50-50 balls last year. Just terrible. They have to be better. Eric, X factor wide receivers.
Yeah, the contested catch was going to be my. I'll go different and say blocking, both in the run game, but I think mostly in the screen game. In the screen game, there were. I mean, wide receivers last year were getting just laid out too fast, and you throw it out there, and it's a 2-on-2 situation. You think there's a little bit of enough room to do it, and we've seen it before work. And last year, it just what the consistency wasn't there. You'd think a guy would have enough space to be able to get outside and go, and it didn't happen. It's a combination offensive line being able to get out there and actually find a guy, and we saw them struggle with that at times last season. But for me, it's just that it's I guess maybe it's just overall how physical are you against opposing defensive backs, and can you win? Whether it's run block, whether it's a some kind of rub route where you have to be physical or blocking in the pass game, you got to be better at that outside.
Mark Culkin, X factor, wideouts.
All the right answers have been taken so far, so I'll go with the other obvious answer. They got to stay healthy, but if I want to just get specific with Jacoby Lane, he has to be consistent. He can't show up for 3 games in a row, take 2 games off, and then show up for 3 in a row. You got to see the best of Jacoby Lane from game 1 through game 12. If you get that, then you definitely have the dynamic duo, probably, one of the best wide receiver tandems in the country, let alone, the big conference. And obviously the other thing, that number 3 wide receiver has to be able to make a name for himself, whether it's Prince Strawn or Zacharias Williams. One of those two, or somebody else, has to step up and really secure that number 3 spot. Because Lincoln Riley's offense, he runs a lot of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. So you want to be out there, you got to show that you're one of those secondary guys.
Yeah. All right, let's move to the tight end room. Not a lot of production from the tight ends going back some years now. Eric, what's the X factor with the tight ends this year?
Walker Lyons. Walker Lyons has to, Mark mentioned finding a third receiver. Maybe that's Walker Lyons, right? I think there's some guys in that wide receiver room where they can step up and be good, but Walker Lyons, how they used him last year, how not really ready he was, I think, just in terms of hadn't played football in a while, hadn't gone through an offseason, all of that. Is he Lincoln Riley's next like pass first downfield true threat at tight end? Because again, it hasn't happened every single year, but when Lincoln Riley had an NFL tight end on his roster, he was phenomenal. So that's it to me. Like how high can he push that ceiling at the tight end spot in terms of making an impact?
Greg, X factor, tight ends.
The health of the tight ends. Every time I start to get really excited about McCray, he somehow gets banged up or hurt, and he doesn't quite get over that fence. I think he's actually pretty good. But I agree. I think Walker Lyons is going to be the test for the USC offense to see how many times they will throw it to him. He's already was considered one of the best high school tight ends in the country when he committed to USC. It's time now to let him get a chance to do what he does. And I think if they get the ball to him enough times, he's going to do some damage.
Yeah, let's hope so. Mark Holkin, what do you think? X factor, tight ends.
You said at the beginning when you introduced this, this position group, production. Are they going to be used? Are they going to be an integral part of the offense? And if you're looking for a true X factor player in that room, we kind of been talking about it recently. What is the role of Walter Matthews? Is he going to be that big jumbo tight end you bring in for like having that six offensive linemen in the red zone? Do they find a role for him? Because you can't teach his size. So why not, right?
Yeah, Matthews was mine too. I think there's something there with a team that needs to run the ball more to have an athletic tight end that's 285 pounds. It's hard to play nickel with two tight ends, one of them being that guy in the game, and so you put some of these teams in defensive sets that they're not used to being in. And that may help open up your passing game too, your play action passes. So I'd like to see what Matthews can do as a blocker. And frankly, I don't know. It may be the Walker Lyons has a big receiving year. I hope so. But if USC's tight ends can block effectively and spring the run game, then I'm going to be good. Don't forget, the USC coaches think that their running backs are the best running backs in the country. I mean, they just said that this past week. We think this is the best running back room in the country. Okay, well, if that's true, then we probably need to run the ball more than 23 times a game, and we probably need to get some guys on the field who can block. And we talked about the trouble that the wide receivers had blocking last year. Hopefully, we're over that. But one solution to that is to get a wideout off the field, put two tight ends on the field, and see if we can block it now. Okay, guys. We have maybe the biggest question mark on the entire roster, or on the for the entire season right now. Offensive line. What's the X factor for the offensive line, Greg Katz?
Well, I will say this. They have people that will play at a level because of their intensity. The question is how effective can they be? Let me give you an example here. If you take the starting right tackle and they move him to guard, let's say, well, is he better as a guard? Tobias, Raymond, he is huge, but maybe he's going to be a better guard, which means that Tanu can come in at tackle, and Justin can establish himself. I know this: if they can keep the group together and they play as hard as they can play, as aggressive as they can play, 12 games is a long time to stay that way and not get hurt. But you know what? You got to start and you got to establish. I think Coach Hansen really, says, you know what? I want to see a physical group of players, and I think everybody that has followed USC, whether you've been following them for 3 years or 53 years, there is that feeling that the USC offensive line should always be as physical or more so than anybody that they play. And if they do, then all good things happen. But I want to see what happens, who the starting guard is when they open up. Is it going to be Banuelos, or is it going to be Tobias Raymond? You know what? If it's Tobias Raymond, I will not worry about it. I want to see how they play together as a group.
Yeah. Eric, what's your thought? What's the X factor with these O linemen?
Yeah, the whole thing. The whole thing. I don't know. I can't like the I know it's the whole alphabet factor. It's so hard to pick how it all comes together, right? You're going into the year, and is Tobias Raymond your best right tackle? Is he your best left guard? Is Justin Tanu coming in to play right tackle? Is your center settled? Do you have multiple guards who are going to play in the first game and the second game, and how does it all sort of work out? So, having said all of that, covered the line. Maybe Elijah Page at left tackle. Like, are you an A grade left tackle, and can you be the cornerstone of that line where there is just no concern about that side, right? Like that side's taken care of. Now we figure out two tight ends of the right side, motion people over, like figure out the rest of it. As long as Elijah Page is playing at a first team, second team, like something like that, all conference kind of player. And so maybe he's like setting the tone over there at left tackle is a real key for this line.
Yeah, it's funny. Everybody's assumed that we're going to be, Elijah Page is going to do his part over here. Let's worry about the other four spots. Guys, Elijah Page was a problem for most of last year. And he was playing, he was young, and it's hard to play that position when you're young. It's like being a young quarterback. So I'm not saying he's not going to improve. I think he will. I'm just saying the last time we were watching Elijah Page play, we were not saying, oh, we don't have to worry about that. That's like having Baselli out there. It was not like having Baselli out there. It was very different. So we'll see. I mean, but Eric's right. If you don't get high quality play from Elijah Page, that is a problem because you are hoping and praying at a lot of other positions along that old line. Mark, who's your X factor, or what is your X factor with the offensive line?
See, I'm going to actually take the other side of the coin of what you just said. Everybody talks about the left tackle position is, it's the money spot, right? You get drafted left tackle in the NFL first round, you're getting paid handsomely, more so than the other players along the offensive line. But is Elijah Page the most important player in that room? We know that when he went down with an injury, Justin stepped in and played left tackle in the bowl game, looked pretty seamlessly. So is it more about, who is more important in that room? Is it Elijah Page? Is it Justin? Is it Tobias Raymond, who the coaches have basically said he has to be on the field at one position or the other? So I guess that's the X factor is who can the room afford to lose the least? Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay. It did in my head. I just want to make sure.
My X factor with the O line is it's mental. The offensive line last year had too many mental mistakes at critical times. USC beats Washington if they block the play in the goal line properly. Instead, they double team and let a linebacker come through clean, and he blows up the play. Game's over. That sort of thing happened quite a bit. So it's part of it is mental mistakes. Part of it is having an aggressive attitude. We talked about physicality. It's hard to be physical if you don't know what you're doing. And so one of the things you get with young offensive linemen is you get guys who don't play as physically as they should because they're still confused. Offensive line, other than quarterback, is the most mentally challenging place on the field. And so when guys are not comfortable A lot of times you'll see them look a little bit passive out there. I don't know, guys. I wish I could say I feel good about this group. If they play well, USC is going to be a very good football team. Because if they play well, if they're running the ball consistently so that play action works, so that you don't have quarterbacks running for their lives, I am fine with Jaden Mayava behind a good offensive line. I'm fine with him. He might still make some mistakes from time to time, but that offense is going to move the ball up and down the field, and they're going to play good defense. It all comes down to that offensive line. And I don't know whether that's a 10-2 playoff offensive line or whether the offensive line is going to take what should be a 10-2 team and turn it into an 8-4 team. I just don't know. But a big part of that is going to be the mental side of it. All right, guys, let's jump to the other side of the ball. Let's start in the secondary. What's our X factor in the secondary? Eric McKinney?
I think it's the corners. Like I didn't want to go super broad with it, which I realize I'm doing now, picking two different spots. But I think it's that's like those are the spots that going into the year feel by far the most up in the air. And I think part of it, right? I think by, I don't know, game 3, game 4, Chasen Johnson has locked down one of those spots, and I'd expect to see a ton of him. But right now, going in, I don't know. It doesn't sound like at this point, like DJ Harvey's getting talked about the same way Jalen Smith was last year, where it's like, okay, that's locked in, good to go at that spot. I think there's an expectation to Carlos Nicholson takes a step forward. There's a lot of like, maybe if this. So I think that's in the whole second, like safety spots, good to go for me. I think you're 4 deep at the 2 or 2 deep at the 2 safety spots. You got 4 safeties that can really play, but the corners and how physical they can be and how they can hold up, I think right now are it's going to be big in terms of what kind of production you get out of the secondary, and really who plays a lot. I think you've got right now 5 corners, 6 corners that could say like I should play at this point. So that to me is interesting how that works out.
Yeah, they say with quarterbacks, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. I wonder if you have 6 corners, whether you have one. I guess we're going to find out. Greg Katz, what's your X factor in the secondary?
They don't give up big plays, that they don't miss tackles, that they don't get beat or have blown coverage. I think that's as important as anything. I think they have athletes. There's no question in my mind they have athletes. But when you take what happens on the practice field, which of course most of us didn't see until the scrimmage, of which we can't comment on, that's going to be a factor to me. I want to see when the one thing about SC is you don't always hear about their great cornerbacks, but when they've been good, they really have good cornerbacks. And you know what? If they're going to be good, usually, let's say per year with Lincoln Riley, everybody says, oh, the offense will be fine, everything will be fine. And everybody's worried about the defense. Now it seems like we're kind of concerned about the offense. And the defense seems to be, everyone has a lot more confidence in it because of the talent and the coaching, which is a good thing. But, to me, I think in the secondary, it's a matter of finding the right one. Now, whether that means finding the right one against Missouri State or, Purdue or even Clay Helton's, Georgia team, I don't know if that's going to prove anything to me, because all of a sudden when you face teams that really have really good receivers and a good offensive coordinator and players, that's when the test will really be shown up. And I hope they'll do well in it.
Yeah, no, I can say that not only are you not sure that it will prove something to you, but if they play well against those 3 teams, it will not prove anything to you, because none of those 3 teams are any good. Mark, what's your X factor with the secondary?
Starting a true freshman at nickel. To me, that seems to be the direction they're going. And if they're doing that, what does that say about some of the older guys that are on the roster? Because once you get past, if you're put a freshman above somebody who's got more experience, what does it tell us about the backups at that position? So, like you said, we probably don't know how good we are until we get into game 4. When we come back home, play Michigan State, and then even then, you're not going up against a quarterback that's known for, having a prolific passing game.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. The coaches love Alex Graham. I'm looking forward to seeing him play, but on a roster that has so many talented young corners, it is interesting that I think they're going to roll him out and start him. So I'm going to take the glass half full approach to it for now, which is to say that he's probably pretty good. Greg mentioned mine already. It's tackling. You can't have missed tackles in the secondary. You can't. And if you go back and look at some of the key moments from last year, including that Michigan game, what you saw were missed tackles in the secondary that lead to disaster. You have to wrap people up and bring them down. You have to. There are two things guys in the secondary cannot do. They can't let people behind them, and they cannot miss tackles. They just can't. And USC's done a lot of both of that the last few years. Not so much letting guys get behind them last year, but they need to be better at it. We're going to see. Okay, let's move up. Let's move up to the linebacker room. I have a feeling I know what I'm going to hear, but let's go ahead and what's the X factor in that linebacker room, Eric McKinney?
I'm gonna let somebody else say Eric Gentry's health. I mean that right, like Eric Gentry's health is the X factor, and he clearly doesn't want to talk about it. He was interviewed recently and just stay healthy. That's it. Didn't want to elaborate, but having him on the field for as many critical, impactful snaps as possible is huge for the USC defense this year. Like that's it. He doesn't need to play more than 4 snaps in this opener, right? To have him on the field at the critical moments is massive for the defense. I had a few others, but you can't skip that as being the biggest thing in the linebacker room.
Probably the biggest thing defensively, right? It's probably the most important thing defensively is Eric Gentry going to be on the field
week to week. That sort of consistency and having him out there, yes. I don't know if there's anybody. I don't know if there's one guy. If you don't have him, it hurts you as much as not having him on the field. And Dylan has said that, right? He's said like he's irreplaceable. Like you don't throw that word out about a lot of this when all of your stuff for football. Next man up. How do we do this? Next man up, right? He's irreplaceable. And that I think that's key because nobody looks and moves like him at that spot. It's true. You got other linebackers that they feel good about and that would go in and they would play, but there's just nobody that makes the combination types of plays that he can make as a pass rusher and coverage and all of that.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, they like their linebacker depth. They keep talking about it, but everybody that knows anything about USC football knows that Eric Gentry is the guy they have to have out there. Mark, what is your X factor with the linebackers?
So can Rob Ryan actually develop these guys from where they are, their talent, and get them to the next level? Can you take those younger guys who, again, they got talent, Desmond Stevens, Jaden Walker, can he elevate their game? So in the, heaven forbid, situation where Eric Gentry is getting a breather, he's not hurt, but he's not on the field, can the other guys behind him just fill that void, fill that spot with not having any type of drop off or any type of significant drop off? It's the guys behind Eric Gentry. Can they raise their game?
Greg Katz, what's your X factor with the linebackers?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it's already been touched by the guys. But I'm kind of the other linebacker next to Gentry, to me, is very intriguing. I think he's a good linebacker. I think we're talking about Desmond Stevens. I think that's it. And I think if he plays really well and to stay on the field, he's going to be a big help. He's going to be a big help. Uh, you know, let's not be naive. The coaches for the other teams are going to know Gentry's past and getting hurt and physical and all that sort of stuff, and they're going to test him. Okay. The question is how does Stevens react to it? SC's had some good players come out of Michigan that played for USC over its long history. And to me, this kid could really be a real diamond waiting to just appear for everyone. He's built really strong. I had a chance to sit and talk with him for a while, and very bright, very articulate, very specific in what he wants to accomplish. And some guys you listen to him and you just go, yada yada yada. Okay, fine. I'll be courteous. I actually was really listening to him because it made a lot of sense to me that if I think the new linebacker coach is going to be, I think he's going to be sensational. I think he knows what he's doing. He has the type of charisma that gets players to listen and to do what he wants. And I think they're going to be a good group. I really do. But like any other group, they have to stay healthy if that's possible. And being linebackers in the Big Ten, you're definitely going to be tested about your physicality.
Yeah. No, you're right. Stevens is built like a linebacker. He runs like a safety. He's an athletic guy. You watch that interception return against Penn State, and you say, this guy can move a little bit. I'm going to go with, look, there's only one right answer here. We already talked about it. So I'm going to go with Tamir Robinson, the transfer from Penn State. If you're playing in the Big Ten, you're playing against teams that like to run the ball. And if you look at the most challenging games on USC's schedule, teams like Michigan, freshman quarterback, Notre Dame, brand new quarterback, barely thrown any passes, Oregon, kid who's starting only his second year as a starter and his first year starting at Oregon. He was underwhelming as a freshman at UCLA. You're looking at a lot of teams, the best teams on your schedule that want to run the ball. And I think USC probably wants to be in more of a traditional 4-3 or even a 5-2. We'll see, rather than a nickel against those teams. But you have to have the linebackers that can do it. I think Tamir Robinson's a guy that you want to have out there against a physical running team to give you that presence up near the line of scrimmage. He played some at Penn State last year. He looks the part. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, but you need to, even apart from the injuries, they're going to need to have three linebackers on the field against teams like Michigan. I know Underwood's a talented kid. Underwood's not going to throw for 380 yards and pick you apart. He's not that kind of guy. Not yet. Michigan wants to run the football, and so I think you need Tamir Robinson to be able to go out there and play physically and shut that down. Okay, let's move up front. X factor for everybody's favorite position group, which hasn't been the case very much at USC recently. A lot of good players in that group, I think, and some excellent coaches. What's our X factor when it comes to the D-line, Mark Culkin?
Get sacks, create pressure, hurt quarterbacks, do everything you didn't do last year. I mean, that's what we've been talking about all off season. Can you get into the backfield and stop being close? Can you start making plays? Can you start generating some sacks? Make the opponent's quarterback uncomfortable.
Yeah. Eric McKinney?
Yeah, I'll second that. There's a little bit of like depth on the edge, right? If Anthony Lucas, not if he goes down again, like there's not a ton there, although with Devin Tompkins being able to slide out, Jakeem Stewart being able to slide out, like I don't think there's any one guy. I guess my point, like the X factor, I don't think there's one guy where it's like, oh, this guy has to have a big year or whatever. Like there's enough up there where I think you can withstand sort of anything. And it does become get home, right? We heard all last year the coaches kind of soft playing like, well, sacks aren't everything. You can affect the quarterback this way, that way, this sort of thing. Well, USC finished 129th in opponent completion percentage. Like that's not affecting the quarterbacks were not affected last year without whatever pressure you got, sacks, all that kind of stuff. They were completing passes. So that's it, right? That's it. Can you drop quarterbacks on the ground? Can you make it so that they are not completing passes this year? And that's it. And you know, you feel dumb because the coaches will all stand up there and say it starts with stopping the run. And it does, and it does. It does. But even in the Big Ten, more and more teams are going to throw the ball and throw the ball, and you have to be able to make quarterbacks uncomfortable week to week.
Yeah, and if you want to help the young corners, you got to be able to get to the quarterback. The other thing about that is if you're playing in the secondary and your guys up front can't get to the quarterback, you can't play aggressively. You can't afford to. So if you want to see better secondary play, if you want to see that completion percentage come down, if you want to see more interceptions, those guys up front have to get to the quarterback. And I think Eric's right in terms of these. You have guys, if Anthony Lucas goes down, you have other big bodies that you can put out there. You have a lot of big bodies who can play defensive end. I don't know how many guys you have that you think have the quickness to come off the edge. I think everybody expects Cameron Fountain to do that. I think everybody hopes that Braylon Shelby will take a big jump. You have the true freshman that had the big scrimmage, but he's undersized. I don't know how often you want to count on him. But you got to get to the quarterback.
I think the interior pass rush takes a big step forward. Like Gavin Meyer, Nate Clifton, like thank you for coming in like full effort, 150% every day. But what I think you got sort of what you expected from guys with that sort of history and physique and all that, being undersized up there and coming from Vanderbilt and Wyoming. Like the idea now that you have these guys who have done it and are good pass rushers in the interior, I think that potentially takes a big step forward, and that affects so much. I mean, when you can pass rush straight up the middle, that is your first key to playing great pass defense.
Yeah. Greg Katz, what's your X factor of the defensive line?
Well, I find it very intriguing because so much has been made of them and how good they are. The question is, how good are they? We've seen a couple of guys come in through the portal, and they really didn't amount to what we hoped they would be. So now you've got 5, 6, 7 guys. I have a lot of confidence in Cameron Fountain. I think that he could really be the edge that they're looking for. But on the inside, it's going to be very interesting to see if they live up to what they're hoping is that they can pass rush and sack somebody, and they can plug holes before the running game gets going. It would seem to me that they have enough players to do it. The coaching is there to do it. Now the question is, they have to do it. And the one thing about the first 3 games, we're going to get a good idea of who can do it. Because if we can't do it against these 3 schools that they play, I'm not laying down a wad of mental cash that they're going to do it against teams like Notre Dame and some of the others that come along, Oregon, because that's what you're really having to pay attention to. I mean, I'm intrigued to see how they do. If you talk to next week when you say, how did you think they did? You're liable to say, well, they did really good. And then, then we'll all say, yeah, but it was Missouri State. And then we'll say the same thing about Georgia Southern. We'll say, oh, yeah, but, Clay Helton had a nice team. And, Purdue was, picked for last in the Big Ten. But the bottom line is you can see certain things against these teams that can give you a lot of positive feelings, just the intensity, the hitting. And I hope it is that way. I hope it is that way because whether they deserve to get this much publicity based on they haven't played any games yet, uh, let's see them play games. And if they deserve all this publicity, go for it. I'd be the first one to sit there and say, this guy's an all-conference player. This guy should be looked at as an All-American in the future. But right now, potential is unproven talent. And that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with can USC control the A gaps this year? It's been a long time since USC effectively did that, probably since Stevie T and that Rose Bowl team back in 2016. Um, and I think they have a couple of guys who can do it. You have the defensive tackles like Devin Tompkins. These guys are big enough, but they're quick. But with Keyshawn Silver, with Jaw Jarrett, you just have two monstrous human beings that should be able to control the center of the offensive line. And Silver has been out a fair amount since he showed up. Jaw Jarrett has never really been able to stay in shape and stay healthy. But if they can get those two guys healthy in shape, where you constantly have somebody who's 340, 350 pounds collapsing the interior of the other team's offensive line, that's an enormous help. I mean, it helps everybody on the defense. It helps your edge rushers, it helps your linebackers, it helps your secondary. It helps everybody. If you can't block the guy closest to the center, you're in trouble as an offense. And I think this is the first year in a long time where you look at it and say, I think USC has the bodies to do that. Now let's see if they can do it.
When Marquise Lee showed up to practice a few weeks ago, he watched Jaw and Keyshawn walk through Goo Gate, and the look on his face was like, "Oh!" And I was like, "Dude, you played with guys that size before," and he didn't. I went back and looked. These are two of the biggest defensive linemen, height and weight, that USC's had in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Usually you see that type of size and weight on the offensive side of the line, the Zach Banners of the world. I understand where Marquise Lee was coming from. I mean, when Keyshawn Silver and Jaw Jarrett walk past you, they look like NFL players. And imagine both of them lined up together.
I mean, they're big, and they're far bigger than most interior defensive linemen in the NFL. They're just enormous human beings, and so being a big guy isn't everything. You can find big guys who can't play. I think these guys are big guys who can move. I think right. I mean, these are guys who should be able to make things happen. That's one thing we will know against Missouri State. We're not going to learn against Missouri State whether or not they're going to dominate the interior of Notre Dame's offensive line. But if we don't see those guys collapsing Missouri State's center and guards, then I'm going to be concerned. Okay, let's do this. X Factor special teams. Let's go with Red Cats.
Well, that's a big question mark to me. That the place kicker is going to be a new one. The punter is going to be a new one. There's been a lot of comment about who's going to be back on kickoff returns. Makai Lemon seems like he's going to be every place and everywhere, returning punts and kickoff returns, and he certainly looks like he could do it. I think I think punters, will be okay. The place kicker, I don't know, because I don't know when you end up at a school like USC and all these expectations, I mean, it's when I saw Bormeister kick the winning field goal against Penn State in the Rose Bowl, I said, now this guy is going to be a player. Of course, it didn't work out that way because that was his last appearance with the Trojans. But if guys can do that, if both of them can be effective in what they do, if you're going to have a championship football team, you need to have A+ starters in those positions, and hopefully they do.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody expects they'll take something of a step back at punter, but you could take a pretty big step back at punter and still be good at that spot this year. Eric, what's your X Factor special teams?
Make field goals. Make them. Miss too many. They missed too many field goals since Lincoln Riley took over as head coach. They were tied for 108th in the country last year in field goal percentage. Make them. That's it. There's field position stuff. There's coverage. There's can you return punts this year, but make field goals when you send the kicker out there.
I like that. Mark?
Yeah, look, you're not going to replace Eddie Traplisky. What he did last year was really fun to watch. I mean, you hate to say punting is winning, but when he would flip the field. He had the ability to put the ball where he wanted it when USC needed it to happen. So you're not going to get that this year, more than likely, from Sam Johnson, but you can still get good punt coverage to make up for that. And I think that's what Eric was talking about just a second ago. If you're not going to get that ball placed at the 1 yard line every time you need it, have guys who are in position to cause a fair catch every single time you have to punt. Just don't give up any extra yards on the return.
Yeah, and one of the things with the roster having been upgraded over the last couple of years, you should see better kick coverage, punt coverage, right? Because a lot of those young guys, those young corners who are fighting for a spot, guys like Elijah Newby, who I don't know how much he's going to play at linebacker, but he's a fantastic athlete. Guys like that should dramatically help USC's coverage units, I hope. I'm going to go with the returners. I trust Mekhi Lemon. I think he's a really good player. But I got to say, I don't know if I've ever been as surprised by a turnaround as I was by Zachariah Branch last year. This is a guy who's an All-American as a true freshman as a returner. And he comes back his sophomore year, and he may be the worst returner in the Big Ten. He was terrible. He didn't know when to catch the ball, when not to catch the ball. He was not elusive. He pretty consistently made the wrong cut, even if he had some space. It was ghastly and shocking. I never expected to see that. Now, Mekhi Lemon, I trust, won't do that, but USC has to get better at that spot. They have to. It was a disaster last year. I mean, every punt when Zachariah Branch was back there was a circus. Teams kept daring him to run out the kicks. And early in the season, I wanted him to. But by the end of the season, I don't want to start 1st and 10 at the 14 anymore. It was just bad. USC has to get better. And part of that is a return man. And Mekhi Lemon will be a better return man than Zach Branch was last year. I don't know if he'll be better than Zach Branch was the year before. But also some of that is blocking. And we'll see. But, those hidden yards that don't show up, they don't show up in the stats, but you get an extra 60, 70, 80, 90 yards in your return game. That makes a gigantic difference. You go look at the advanced metrics for where you start on the field and what your expectations are in terms of points. An 18-yard return is huge. It's huge. So we'll see. That's my X factor for that. Okay, last one. X factor for coaching. Greg Katz, I already know what you're going to say. You got to think of something new. Think of something different.
You just want to see me get ripped on the message boards. That's what you want. I know what you want.
I mean, that happens to all of us. That doesn't matter.
No. Well, my feeling is, having coached for many, many years in sports, I have no problem with defense the way it is right now. The coaching to me is elite. And you don't become the #1 recruiting class in the country, especially when you look at the defensive end of it, unless you've got guys that really have their head on straight and ready to go. And I think they do. I never thought in the 4th year of Lincoln Riley's program that I would have concern about the offense, but I do. And I don't do it just based on the fact I think he's a good quarterback coach. I don't think anyone deny that. He hit some really good things when he was a young coach taking over for Bob Stoops at Oklahoma. But I think that at some point you start to say, on the offensive end of it, when you see guys, let's say wide receivers not blocking on bubble screens and things like that, you go, why is that happening? Now, in my brain, it's because the players they don't care. They're not all for the team. They don't like doing it, so therefore they don't do it. I'm interested about the offensive line and the coaching. I liked what was being said, that we want to be physical, and that was one of the first. I mean, what does that tell you? We want to be physical. That means we haven't been what we say we're going to be. And to me, if SC's offensive line is not physical, good night, Irene. And it all comes back to, I'm sorry, I know that it upsets other people. It does not upset me because I'm telling you just how I feel. You can think totally different than me. It gets back on Lincoln Riley. Is he just a good quarterback coach who is a good offense coordinator, or is he just a good off? I mean, look at where their recruiting has been up until this year in the fourth year. Uh, I think he admits he's made some mistakes, and I tip my hat to him that he said it. But look at, we're going to find out what this offense is all about by how he runs it. And certainly the players are responsibility for what, I mean, he could call the right play and they don't run it right. That's definitely happens. But you know, more and more people are starting to look at Lincoln Riley. I'm sorry that's happening, but I'm looking at Lincoln Riley and I'm hoping he does a great job.
It's a big year for him. It's a big year for him.
Big year.
Mark Holkin, X Factor, coaches.
I'll focus on Coach Riley. Just better clock management. Stay dedicated to the run game when it's working. If we talk about empty stats, if there's no such thing as an empty stat when your running back is picking up 5 yards a pop. So if they're not going to adjust, continue doing, just keep doing what the opponent's defense is allowing you to do. If they're saying run the ball, run the ball. If they're saying pass the ball, pass the ball. I just don't want to hear at the end of a game against a team like Minnesota, we were just waiting for Coach Riley to go back to what he feels comfortable doing. So this is his second year in the big conference. Make that adjustment. Understand that, the clock is your friend, especially when you have a lead late in the fourth quarter on the road. It's up to this staff to get this team over the hump. So whether it's Coach Riley, he's the big toe, but each of those position rooms, you've got Coach Henney, you've got you got Coach Zach Hansen, Doug Belk, Trovon Reed, Lynn on the defensive side of the ball all together. Get this team over the hump. Teach them how to win games at the end. That's the X factor going into this year. We heard it from Coach Riley how many times? We're close. We're really close. Well, yeah, when you're leading in the fourth quarter with a minute or less to go in the game, you were close. Now let's get some separation.
Eric McKinney, X Factor, coaching staff.
How do you play on the road this year? You got some big road games, and they've been downright bad on the road. I think last year was probably the most gift wrap 5-0 road schedule that you're ever going to get in the Big Ten. Like a Michigan team that could only play a third of offense, like didn't have 2/3 of an offense. And then Maryland, Minnesota, like all those up, a Washington team that was probably as down as it's going to be in a while with the coach there. And you look back at it and how they've played on the road under Riley. Like the best game they ever came out on the road was that very first road game, 2022 at Stanford. Lit them up early. Stanford came back late. Then you got the Oregon State win, which was a great win, but no offense there. And then you have the Utah loss next, which might be the best game they played on the road, and you gave up 43 points and lost that one. And it feels like every single road game has just been worse and worse and worse as you've gone along. And that's something that's got to change this year. Again, you're looking at it where you can play pretty well on the road and still lose 3 games this year with how tough it is. So I don't know if it's just what was your win-loss record on the road, but show up and play. Show up and play. They've had some sort of emotionless no-shows on the road, and that has to change this year. Whatever it is, whatever you need to do to change that. And Riley's very cautious about giving anything away, but he has said, like, we've seen some things, we've made a few changes to road game stuff. That to me is huge this year, because while you can lose a few of those road games and not lose your season, you can't go and get blown out in a couple of those. You can't have that at Notre Dame game from 2 years ago where you just are not competitive from the beginning. So that to me is really big this year and how they approach the year and how they play game to game.
Yeah. I think that when you look at Lincoln Riley's career, he's won a lot of games playing the same way. Scoring a lot of points, giving up a fair amount of points, winning games 43-30. Can Lincoln Riley adjust to a very different type of football team that he has this year? This defense isn't going to give up 30 or 40 points very often. Look, these days, everybody gives up 30 or 40 points occasionally. Georgia does, Alabama does, it happens. But you have a defense that should keep you, not just keep you in every game, but really should cause problems for the other team. You have to be comfortable running the ball on 3rd and 3, even if you might punt. You have to be comfortable doing that. You certainly have to be comfortable on 2nd and 9 running the ball, because if you don't trust your running game, and look, if you have Caleb Williams at quarterback and you have Alex Grinch at defensive coordinator, you think you have to score every possession. With Caleb Williams, you think you can, so you put the ball in his hands over and over again. And I watched that and thought, okay, look, I don't like it. I'd like to run the football some, but I get it, because Caleb is the most talented college quarterback I've ever seen. But then when you see him do it last year, then despite the fact you have quarterbacks throwing, back-breaking interceptions routinely, then you start to wonder, can Lincoln Riley win the way Big Ten coaches win? Can he? Pete Carroll didn't have any problem winning a game 28-20, and fans wouldn't like it. It's, and it would happen, long after Reggie and Matt were gone, because with those guys around, you were going to score 28 in the first half, no matter what you did. But he'd win games like that. And Pete Carroll's a defensive coach, and Pete Carroll is quite comfortable. If my defense is playing, I'm not going to put them in a bad spot, and that's okay. I don't know that Lincoln Riley's ever had a team like that. He has one like that this year. So we'll see whether he can adjust to it. It'll be interesting.
I'm with you on that, right? Embrace a 21-17 win where you run 42 offensive plays and celebrate like Kirk Ferentz coming off the field, right? Like there's so many times it feels like, I don't have an exact number on this, but it sure feels like sometimes on those losses, especially on the road, when you're in that press conference at the end, and he's well, we only got to run this many offensive plays. And I think you're right where it's like, embrace that, right? Be okay with that, and know that you have a defense this year that can do that. So I'm totally with you on that, right? 3rd and 3 in a crucial situation, and you're up 3 and you got to protect a lead. Run it, right? Be okay with that, when, as obvious as it was last year, you had opposing coaches that were saying, hang back, they're throwing this. They're throwing this to us. So I think that I do think that's big. Yeah.
That 3rd down and 4 stat that you threw up there, Eric, was just, I mean, I don't know how you drive the point home any harder than that. Run the ball.
Yeah, look, you can't be a successful running team unless you're willing to run on 2nd and 9 and sometimes 3rd and 5 and on 1st and 15. You have to be able to do it, and the good running teams do it. And if USC is going to be a good running team, if they really do have the best running backs in the country, the way the coaches think they do, then you've got to get the ball in their hands. And if you don't know whether your quarterback's going to make smart decisions, then you really need to get the ball in their hands. So we'll see whether he can do it. All right, guys, let's close with this. I'm not going to lie to anybody. This is the worst opener I've ever seen on a USC schedule. It just is. And I don't mean to insult Missouri State, but I don't mean to not insult Missouri State. I didn't know, I'd never heard of Missouri State until we scheduled them. And as I put in my article, that's coming from somebody who was an undergrad in Missouri. I don't know.
You probably heard of Southwest Missouri State.
I had heard of Southwest
They
Missouri
dropped the
State.
Southwest from their name.
Well, that's fantastic. They're less of a directional school, but I still don't know who they are. They were a decent FCS team last year. They went 8-4. They got blown out by North Dakota State and South Dakota State, just humiliated. They gave up 30 points a game playing FCS teams. USC's offense will do whatever it wants to do Saturday. It will do whatever it wants to do. If they want to throw for 500 yards, they'll do that. If they want to run for 500 yards, they'll do that. Because this is not a team that can match up with USC at all in any way. They do have a good quarterback. This is an experienced guy, threw for a lot of yards. They were pretty decent offensively. They also couldn't protect him last year. He got sacked 40 times. I mean, I can't imagine a team that is set up better for USC to come out and just roll them and get the pass rush going, get the run game going. I mean, guys, put some lipstick on this pig for me, please. Somebody help me out.
No, there's not. I mean, again, you're not getting anything out of this. It's just you want to see how physical USC can be in a game like this. Like, can you just sort of push them around the field, run through them, and do that sort of stuff? Because you look back at some of these openers, the UNLV, the Western Michigans, the San Jose States, the whatever, like the things that have come up later in the year sometimes have been there in that one. So again, if Jay Mayava gets sacked 3 times in this one just on pure pass rush beats, right? If you can't pick up a 3rd and 2 consistently on the ground, like those are things where they pop up and it's, uh-oh. If they push this team around and they run for 300 yards, you're not going to say, well, they're doing that to Notre Dame, well, they're doing that to Oregon, but you still need to check that box. You still need to do that against this team. And so just coming out and we're bigger, we're stronger, we can win that game rather than like, I'd rather see them win that game than we're flashier and we can beat you deep and we can do that sort of stuff on here too. Look, I'm gonna be okay. If you flare one out to Eli Sanders and he goes 80 yards, that's fine with me. But a consistent kind of running game and just being the more physical team, I think is something you want to see.
Yeah, USC is going to blow out Missouri State, but I'm with you. I don't want to see them blow out Missouri State because Jaden Mayava has 8 touchdown passes. I don't want to see that. Greg, Mark, help me. What is there about this game that, I mean, this is like a spring game, but you bring in some people from somewhere else to play the spring game, right? I mean, it's just.
Let me remind everybody, this was supposed to be the game where Lane Kiffin makes his triumphant return to LA and the Coliseum. That's who USC was supposed to be playing. This is a game that needs to be over by halftime. That's how you know USC has taken the next step in their development as a program. When you're playing a team like Missouri State, which is literally barely a step down from when USC hosted Idaho, you have to be able to beat this team like you're supposed to beat this team. Give the pollsters a reason to consider moving you out of the other teams receiving votes, portion of the poll. Otherwise, you belong where you are. This game needs to be over by halftime so your backups are playing significant minutes in the 3rd and 4th quarters.
Greg Katz, give me your thoughts on Missouri State.
Well, it's the first game of the year in 2025. And you know what? Doesn't make any difference who SC's playing in a lot of ways. It's the first game. So there's going to be excitement and there's going to be mystery and there's going to be head scratching. And it'll be interesting to see how many people show up to the game in the Coliseum. It's been very hot in Southern California, like it has been in a number of places. So we'll see how much determination there is. In the end, it's how USC plays for USC. It doesn't matter to me what Missouri State does unless they start gashing the defense and then you start going, oh boy, this is not a good sign. So we'll see. We'll see how the substitutions go. And I expected that the game will be a rout. But sometimes you can have a rout and you can say, yeah, we beat the hell out of them, but I wasn't happy with the way we did that. Or you can say, that's exactly what we should have done. And that's where I'm excited to see. How are they going to do it? Because it's going to lead to the next one against Coach Helton, and that'll raise the bar just a little higher.
Yeah, play smart, don't get hurt.
That's
That's
it.
right. Play smart, don't get hurt.
Agree.
Okay, that's enough. I don't want to talk about Missouri State anymore. I know you guys are itching to have another hour on them, but we're not going to do it.
Oh,
If you haven't taken, we still have our $1
Get
intro
here.
offer there.
Get here. $1 first week. Everything you can handle about the Missouri State Bear. Let's call them the Bears.
The
They're
Bear.
the Bears. Look, $1 to get that much Missouri State coverage. Come on, people, just sign.
There's a sprinkling of USC coverage over the top of that.
It's all the post-game reactions that they're going to get too. I mean, when we do our 5 things after the game, all that's coming up.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll see you over on the message boards. And next week, we will do a little Missouri State recap, and we'll talk about the glorious return of one Clay Helton. That's pretty exciting. All right. Until next week, fight on, everybody.